is one of the objective is to organize its annual convention every year to bring all its members for reorientation, updating and collaboration. There had been a number of annual conventions. 2017 we had it in Pune, Maharashtra. In 2018 we had it in Kochi, Kerala.
Network among priests and religious lawyers, sharing of experiences and gain in the annual convention, inviting local church leaders, archbishops, on legal ministry to the church. Secondly, and judges sitting and retired to give in wherever it is possible. Annual convention at Ranchi, Jharkhand. The theme was the prophetic response over India. Number of days, we had it for 3 days. The Bishop of Simloka, Dr. Keshav Rao Varkula, the Vice Chancellor of National University of Study and Research in Law, Yeni Advocate Jayant Franklin Topo, Government Advocate of Jharkhand High Court. These are tribals. The demonstration of Adivasi culture, annual convention at Kerala. There was a good response. Other participants of other states unanimously appealed to TN delegates for national convention in 2024. As the Tamil Nadu said, it was the teams from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. They warmly welcomed us to the vibrant land of Telugu Nadu. Often celebrated as
Father Sliva Raj, Father Raju Alex, Sister Rose and Father Christu Raj worked tirelessly alongside the diocesan team to organize this memorable conference. Sister Helen Teresa and Father Mahendra was instrumental in providing logistical assistance through seamless execution of this significant gathering. Our heartfelt gratitude goes out to His Excellency J. Rao Palimaro and his team, Father Sliva Raj and Raju Alex, for their remarkable contributions. A salute to our brothers and sisters. The priests are actively engaged in the practice of law, striving with distinction from the magistrate and municipal courts to the Supreme Court of India. Many among us have dedicated ourselves to rural regions, taluks and districts, extending legal aid to the poorest of the poor. Special recognition is due to our members working in challenging terrains such as Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Gujarat and the northeastern states. These regions often present significant hurdles in safeguarding minority rights and religious freedom, issues that arise almost daily. Despite these challenges, many of us offer our services pro bono, embodying the true spirit of selfless service and bearing witness to the teaching of the gospel. The forum salutes each one of you for your unwavering commitment and dedication. Your work not only uplifts communities, but also stands as a statement to the transformative power of faith in action. The theme for the National Convention: changing legal landscape, the context and the call. The changing legal landscape in India, the context and the call is the central theme for the National Conference of the National Lawyers Forum of Religious and Praise, as it encapsulates the evolving nature of India's legal system, the challenges to constitutional values and the need for proactive engagement by religious and legal professionals. The context: the legal landscape in India is shifting due to recent legislative changes, judicial rulings, and socio-political dynamics that have broad implications for minority rights, religious freedoms, and constitutional compliance. These developments call for greater vigilance, especially from minority communities like the Catholic Church, whose rights to practice and propagate faith, manage institutions, and uphold social justice missions could be affected. The call: the role of the Catholic religious and legal professionals. Given this context, there is a call for the Catholic Church, especially its legal advocates and religious leaders, to advocate for constitutional values, engage in legal education and awareness, defend religious freedom, promote social justice. Moving forward, finally, as we continue this journey, let us remain steadfast in our mission, inspired by the gospel values and guided by the Indian Constitution for justice, equality and fraternity. It is with great honor and joy that I declare the National Conference 2024. This gathering represents a unique opportunity for dialogue, collaboration and renewed commitment to justice and service. May our time together be productive, inspiring and impactful for the mission we uphold. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Santanam, for your elaborative history of National Convention Forum.
Now, with great joy and respect, we call upon Your Excellency, Most Reverend Bishop Jairao Pulimbira, the patron of the National Convention, to deliver his message to our congregation. Welcome, dear Bishop.
The side Kostara, media personals. Good morning to wonderful ones. Good morning. Hello, Supreme Court advocates. Good morning. I am very happy. I know, I can understand. Arey, Divavani, idhar se awana. Chara dekhne ke. Malliyalai vedajallunu makarandamai మనసును కుదురుగా నిలుపువాకిది మనసును కుదురుగా నిలుపువాకిది ప్రతి జీవికి చుక్కాని ఈ వాకు ప్రతి మదిని మందిరముగా మలిచేవాకు మమతానురాగాలకు నిలవైన వాకు క్రీస్తుని ప్రేమను వికసించును ఈ వాకు క్రీస్తుని ప్రేమను వికసింపును ఈ వాకు ప్రభుని వాక్కు మల్లియలై వెదజల్లును మకరందమై. The Honorable Judge, Public Prosecutors, Senior and Junior Advocates and all the distinct guests, I welcome you to this blessed diocese of Eluru, particularly to the prestigious institution of the Dental and Nursing College St. Joseph institutions. Welcome with a good heart. I'm very happy because a national team coming to Eluru is nothing but a sign of progress, and you're all, I see and I believe, a progressive thinkers. Heads up and congratulations to you, my dear wonderful President and the team of this National Legal Forum. Definition of law, already you know, I need not to give, but I should give. Law refers to set of rules and regulations that govern human behavior and interactions within a society, not out of the society. It is a formal mechanism for resolving disputes, protecting individual rights, and promoting social order. Individual rights and promoting social orders. Source of law, status, case law, constitution law, international law, role of lawyers. What they do? Lawyers play a vital role in the modern world, serving as a beautiful, modest advocates. Are there anyone in the Catholic Church? Are there any lawyers in this Catholic Church? I could see there are many. First, in 1878, 1903, Pope Leo XIII, a pioneer to Catholic social teaching, he advocated for workers' rights, social justice, and protection of the poor. Pope Pius XI 1922 and 1939, he spoke out against fascism, Nazism, and communism, and advocated for the rights of workers, the poor, and the marginalized. Pope John 23rd, our famous man, 1958 to 1963, he convened the Second Vatican Council, which brought about significant reforms and renewed focus on social justice and ecumenism. Saint John Paul II, 1978 to 2005, a strong advocate for human rights. He spoke out against communism, apartheid, and other forms of oppressions. Pope Francis, 2013, he has been a vocal advocate for the poor, the environment, the social justice, and has spoken out on issues such as climate change, economic equality, and migration. Are there any bishops like me? Yes. Archbishop Oscar Romero, El Salvador, 1917, a martyr for social justice. A martyr for social justice. He advocated for the rights of the poor and oppressed. He spoke out against government repression. Wow. Bishop Samuel Ruiz, Mexico, 1924, a champion of indigenous rights and social justice. He advocated for the rights of the poor and marginalized. This is the background for us. What the Bible speaks about this. Matthew chapter 25, verse 31, 46. The parable of the sheep and the goats, where Jesus separates the righteous from the wicked based on the treatment of the poor and marginalized. Bible speaks. Again, the book of Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 to 15. The final judgment, where all people are judged according to their deeds. So be careful, my dear wonderfuls. Psalm 96, verse 13. Before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples in his faithfulness. Okay, now I don't want to take much. I give final touch what my wonderful Holy Father Pope Francis says. Holy Father Pope Francis is pretty much a practical, outgoing, outstanding, well-spoken Holy Father. He was talking something very interesting. Fratelli Tutti is bringing out that encyclical and telling the people, speak and listen. Listen to the cry of the nature. Now you, the wonderful judges, public prosecutors, senior and junior advocates, and the practitioners, congratulations. I, as a Bishop of Eluru, appeal to this august congregation. Hold on to the Bible. That's the first constitution for you. That's what the Moses received, the commandments. Now the second one is our national Indian constitution. These both should go together. If you miss one, yeah, give a big applause for me also. Give a big applause. If you are not holding these two, you are a fish out of the water. So you should know what the constitution is speaking, what the Bible is speaking. Come what may, their martyrs are there, and you be the martyr. Tomorrow you will be honored by the church as a saint, advocate saint, first advocate saint. There are so many are there, and you will be the saints. I wish you every best of luck. I'm running late. I got to go back. Wish you all the best. President, carry on. God bless you all. Thanks for this wonderful time.
I would like to express our sincere gratitude the Most Reverend Bishop Jayaravu Polimera for his visionary leadership and generous support in making this conference possible. His unwavering commitment to the cause of justice and his dedication to fostering intellectual discourse have been instrumental in bringing us all together today. We are truly honored to have him as our patron. Thank you, dear Bishop, for your inspiring and motivating words. Have a
Dear members, we are honored to have the presence of Most Reverend Bishop J. Rao, Bishop of Eluru and Apostolic Administrator of Visakhapatnam as the chief guest of our convention. I now call upon Father Sandhanam, the convener of National Lawyers Forum, to honor him with a shawl.
going against the Constitution, both in letter and spirit. We have with us Reverend Father Babu Sebastian Francis, Director of Social Work of Allahabad Diocese, who became a victim of this draconian law and was in jail for almost 3 months for just going to the police station for inquiring about persons who got arrested in the pretext of anti-conversion law. May I request Reverend Father Babu to come over here and share his experience in few words.
Reverend Bishop and Excellencies on the dais, my dear fathers and sisters, going to the jail is the last thing that should happen to any one of us. I was just in the police station wanting to inquire about my staff who was caught up by the police, and his elder brother was involved with some Pentecostal church where they were conducting some prayer meetings. The police could not catch this man and they caught his brother who was working in my office. I went to inquire about him in the police station, and as I went to inquire, I come to know that somebody has been conducting some prayer meetings, and this staff is the brother of that man. People said, "Father, you please go, because this is a very tricky case and you can be inside." I said, "No, let me see." I went there because I was an advocate. I'm a canon law person, I'm educated, and so I went to the police station. Within few minutes, a group of people came to the police station shouting against Christianity, against conversion, and one of them asked me my name. I said, "Father Babu Francis." He asked my father's name, he asked my address, and we were 3 more people, friends of mine, who had come to the police station. They got all our names, and the police inspector said, "Put them into the police lockup." They took away our phones and we were in the police lockup within 15 minutes. After that, the world changed for me. Next day, by evening, 8:30, I was in the central jail, Naini, Allahabad. Yes, the jail experience is a very traumatic experience, something very tragic. The cleanliness, the hygiene, the place where you sleep with the cats and rats and earthworms and spiders and cockroaches and ants and all kinds of insects. And every night you have a nightmare when you get up next morning. A jail with 4,500 prisoners, where actually only 2,000 prisoners are supposed to be stationed. Toilets, 400 prisoners, 5 toilets. Food, which is very unhygienic, but we have to survive. The first 15 days I prayed, Lord, I have not done any mistake, take me out from here. After 15 days, my prayer changed, Lord, take me out when you want. I was not afraid of my individual self, but I was only afraid of my social work, my FCRA, because FCRA is in question in many places. I was only afraid that that should not have any difficulty. I want to share 3 things which I learned from my jail experience. I have given that in a few interviews. The first thing which I learned from my jail experience was that let us not be too confident about ourselves. I have a lot of money, or we have a lot of money, we have huge institutions, we have huge contacts, we have a big legacy, we have a big tradition, but let us not be complacent and sit back very comfortably, because anything can happen to us any moment. There is no guarantee that we are safe. Anything can happen to us any moment. And that's what happened to me. And so let's not be overconfident about ourselves, our degrees, our advocacy, our practice. Because I thought as a lawyer that, okay, if I go to a police station and somebody complains against me, the police would at least ask me, what did you do? But today the picture is very different. I can sit in Allahabad and fire a case, FIR against a person in Eluru. This is the difficulty today. The first thing, let us be vigilant and cautious. Let us not take things for granted. The second thing I learned, let us remain ever grateful every moment of our life, because we have received much from the Lord. I was sleeping with people in my barrack. Next to me, a person 18 years in jail. Next to that, 12 years in jail. No one comes to see them. No one comes to talk to them. But I was lucky. I had friends and priests and sisters who came to see me, brought me bread and butter, brought me fruits and biscuits. And I was thanking the Lord, Lord, at least I've got something. Let us be thankful to the Lord every moment of our lives. And the third important note that I learned from the jail, we have a beautiful intermediate college in Allahabad, St. Joseph's. It is about 146-year-old, 6,000 boys studying in that school. And we have innumerable judges, lawyers, police, politicians who have passed through the portals of that institution. And when our bishop and priests went to these judges and priests and lawyers and asked them if they could help, they only said, difficult. It's not easy. And so I had to stay 3 months in jail. And I believe and I'm firmly convinced that the only power that can help us and save us and bring us some consolation is the power of prayer. The whole world was praying for me. I know many of you were praying for me. But only prayer was the power that could take me out of the jail. I had decided in my mind that I'll celebrate my new year in the jail. October 1st, I was in the police station, and October 2nd, I landed in the jail. I came out in the end of December 22. December 22, I was out, and then the case is still on. I have to go to the district jail once in a while, and my case is now in the High Court also for quashing the case. But nobody is ready to give us a clear chit. Every judge, every lawyer, every public prosecutor, they are very good friends. They only say, it's not easy, it's difficult, let's wait. My dear brothers and sisters, what I come to realize today is that in India we are speaking about atrocities against Christians, we are speaking about sufferings and torture. I think the time has come where we need to put our house in order. A great need to see that our documentation is correct and accurate. I know there are many parishes where they do not have land documents. There are schools which do not have affiliation renewed documents. There are many places where they've got various other lacuna in the documentation. I think it's a time for us to awake and be vigilant, not to be frightened, but to be ready to face as the Lord helps us. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, dear Father, for sharing your life experience with us, Lord.
Sorry, I had to leave for Mass, run by late, 1 hour late. Never happened. God bless you.
Thank you. I studied from 6th to 10th class in St. Xavier's High School, Eluru. By the time when Father Kalpak Cheri is the correspondent to our school, he used to come to my classrooms, and I learnt a lot from him. And coming to this convention, it's not an easy thing to bring all the advocates in all over India to Eluru. That credit goes to our Bishop Garu, Jairao Pulimera. No doubt about it. Here, it's my pleasure to be here with you all today. And I was invited by Father Bala Garu and Father Moses Garu, who is the correspondent of this St. Joseph Dental College, Eluru. I was very thankful to you, sir. And I'm thankful for giving this opportunity. And I wish you all in advance Happy Christmas to you all. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. We are honored to have the esteemed presence of Reverend Sister John C., the Mother General of Sisters of Good News, to share a few words of wisdom and encouragement with us.
Most Reverend, Your Excellency, though he is not here, and all the esteemed guests on the stage and the off stage, a very good morning to everyone. I feel so happy to stand in front of you all to speak a few words, that is regarding the esteemed lawyers who have gathered here. I feel it's our privilege to have you all for the Catholic Church, because today the church suffers and the society suffers a lot of injustice. So I feel that since with your help and collaboration we can bring voice to the voiceless and justice to the poor. So that is what we need to bring the integrity of the church. So I feel that you are here to uphold the integrity as well as the unity and the justice of the church. So I feel so happy to say that, happy to see you also here, that we have such a professionals for the Holy Catholic Church. So I am also encouraged to send some of our sisters for learning this law. And I am really motivated by your great presence here. So I promise that I will send some of our sisters for the study in order to safeguard the integrity of the church. Because I believe that this profession is not just merely a profession, but it is a divine call, where we need to exercise our divinity and justice for the upliftment of the poor and the voice of the voiceless. So I wish you all the best, and always our blessings, our continued prayer will be for you, so that you may be able to exercise your duty in more just and truthful way. So wish you all the best. Thank you for giving me this chance.
Sister, be there. Just be there. Thank you, Sister Johnsy, for this words of appreciation and encouragement. And now I call upon Sister Julie George, our senior lawyer, to honor her with a shawl and memento.
May I now request Sri Ronald Raju, Senior Advocate of District Court, High Court and Supreme Court, to address this gathering.
I'm extremely thankful to Almighty God for affording this opportunity, wonderful opportunity, to share this occasion and to grace this wonderful occasion. Dignitaries on the dais and the senior members of the bar, and Honorable Judge, though Bishop, beloved Bishop is not here, Bishop of the diocese, and invitees, while extending welcome to the invitees from all over the corners of the country, I congratulate and appreciate the spirit of the beloved Bishop of our diocese to imbibe and inculcate the spirit of law among the members of legal fraternity here and fathers and sisters. These days, it is very much required to empower oneself with the spirit of law. After hearing the traumatic experience shared by the father here, it concludes that it is the failure of the system, failure of the legal system in India, for absolutely no offense he has committed. He has been persecuted, incarcerated for a period of nearly 1 month or more than 1 month. 3 months. It is ridiculous. We are speaking about the Constitution. We are speaking about the statutes and constitutional remedies, fundamental rights. When you read the Constitution, will feel extremely happy. When it comes to the implementation of the Constitution and the statutory protections afforded to the citizens, why a discrimination is going on? Is it not the failure on the part of the system? So unless and until we raise a voice of protest, there will not be any solace to the minority communities in our country. Therefore, since our learned brother is there to deliver the keynote address, I don't want to take much of the time, and the time is running out. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Or sometime later, we'll discuss elaborately how the constitutional provisions are not being properly implemented. What is the reason for that? What is the reason for that? When you read the part 3 of the Constitution, all feel very, very happy. Very wonderfully worded Constitution we are having. Preamble is a wonderfully worded preamble we are having. But when it comes to the implementation, there is absolutely no protection. No protection. Why? There is a lack of awareness among the minority communities. We have to demand justice. We have to protect ourselves. So only when we protect ourselves and demand justice and secure justice, only when you are equipped with rule of law, spirit of law. Thank you very much for affording this opportunity. Thank you once.
Thank you, sir, for the few words of appreciation and encouragement for us. We also appreciate your presence, Advocate Sri Ronald Raju, practicing in the High Court of Andhra and Telangana. I now invite Sister Helen, the Treasurer of National Lawyers Forum, to honor him with a shawl and memento. Association. I invite Sister Flory, the Secretary of National Lawyers Forum, to honor him with a shawl and memento. We are also indeed overwhelmed by the gracious presence of our Honorable Judge, Sri Dunna Ramulu, the Session Judge, Ongole. We are deeply honored by your esteemed presence, Your Honor. I call upon Father Sebastian Kolindanam, the convener of Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Rajasthan, to honor him with a shawl and memento.
Respected dignitaries in dais, dear friends, good morning to you all. First of all, let me thank
Ronald Raju will be given memo. Now our Chief Guest, Sri Ronald Raju, will be given memento.
First of all, let me thank this forum for giving me this opportunity to introduce the senior council member of Madras High Court, Sri Isaac Mohanlal from our own city, Madurai. He is known for his own subjects, especially his own profession. In our city, he is a known person, and whenever we approach for his help, he is very humble enough to talk with us. I always admire his humility whenever we approach, because he has come from a family of the educated, and whenever we approach him, his communication is very clear and his arguments are always very logical and historical also. Therefore, his esteemed presence here is very meaningful and valuable. And his contribution towards the Catholic Church and also at large to the Christians is very meaningful and tremendous. Therefore, we are very much grateful to him also. From his chamber, he has brought out many of the best religious advocates in Tamil Nadu. Especially most of the nuns are here. And he has brought out many of the priests also with vision and mission. And one among them is the president of our own forum, Father Sandhanam. So, he is the junior of Sri Isaac Mohanlal ji. Therefore, we are proud to have him. So, he is a champion of justice in halls of law. When justice reigns, he has tested its voice for rights just sustains. Isaac Mohanlal, a name so bold, advocate of truth, the heart does unfold. With passion pure and conviction bright, he fights for justice day and night. His words a shield for those in need, a champion of rights, his spirit proceeds. With wisdom guiding and compassion true, he navigates the law anew. For every client, a friend he stands, Isaac Mohanlal, a guardian of their hands. His legacy, a beacon of hope, a shining star that justice does hope. In the realm of law, his name is known, Isaac Mohanlal, a hero forever sown. With these words, I invite him to deliver his keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Reverend Father Paul Brito, for the kind words what you spoke about me. Though I feel that I may not deserve that much, I'm so grateful to you because you had taken the pains of even drafting a poem for me. Good morning to all of you. I would start with a word of congratulations to our esteemed President, Reverend Father Sandhanam, This is a moment of great pride for all of us at this 75th year of the Indian Constitution to see these many people from the religious side have taken law as their profession side by side. And I'm afraid that in the years to come, these white cassocks may overtake the black gowns. I always believe that the one among the greatest of the three ministries undertaken by Lord Jesus Christ, preaching, teaching, and healing, we are always witness here after the crucifixion and maybe the resurrection and the healing of Jesus Christ. He is not physically present here to discharge the two obligations. Maybe he is discharging that through all of us, people like you, the duty of preaching and healing. But the one thing he has been constantly doing before the Lord for us is the pleading, the lawyer's job, which he is still doing. I always think that a great part of the Christian missionary service is the emancipation of man, the human rights, the basic rights, and what we heard the father sharing the tragic incident of being in jail for almost 3 months for the cause of this mission. These are all moments which we must recollect and we must rejuvenate ourselves. It is good that we have conferences like this, National Lawyers Forum of Catholic priests and sisters. Today, we are standing aloft at that 75th year of the Indian Constitution. It is not an ordinary thing. Why? Because this word challenge is not something new to us. It was there at the time when the nation was struggling for independence, at the time when the nation was drafting the Indian Constitution. But it did not stop there. Challenge has been a constantly ongoing process, particularly in any democracy. If you look back a little, the Constitution of India was not something which was offered on the platters by someone. It was the product of a very long and huge fight and struggle. At the time when India was born as a nation, it did not satisfy even one single Aristotelian definition of a nation or a state. Benjamin Disraeli, the former president of Britain, he said, it doesn't satisfy any of the components of a nation. No single ethnicity, no single religion, no single tribal background, no single language, no single culture, no defined territory, nothing. It was almost composed of 60 to 70 crores of people at the time of independence. All of you know, historians have gone on record saying that it was constituted of such a widely heterogeneous population, diverse in all respects. 6 major ethnic groups, 52 major tribes, 6 major languages, religions, 18 major languages. Now we have in the Constitution 22 major languages, which are forming part of the Schedule 8. 1,600 minor languages and dialects, and 6,400 castes and subcastes. When this heterogeneous population took the historic decision to live as a single nation under a single constitution, it was a matter of great amusement for the entire world. Historians stood in all amazement whether this nation would survive for one single year. Nobody believed. Nobody. John Strachey, the famous British historian who did a lot of research in India, he went on delivering series of lectures in the University of Cambridge. He said this nation would not survive as a democracy even for a single year. After a lot of research, because of its diversification. But today, we have crossed more than 3/4 centuries and stand strong as a single nation. If you ask me what is the big reason behind this, I would undoubtedly say it is because of one single document, namely the Constitution of India. Again, at the time when the Constitution of India was to be framed, there was a lot of debate whether this independence should be the charity of the British or it shall be our birthright which we will take out to ourselves. Ironically, in history, we had to take independence from the British's hands by way of a British legislation that is called the Indian Independence Act 1947. Even we did not have the choice of choosing the day of independence. 15th of August 1947 was not the date of our choice. It was a date thrust upon us by Lord Mountbatten because he was very particular to commemorate the second anniversary of the closure of the Second World War. All of you know that after the explosion of the atomic bomb over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, on the 15th of August 1945, the Japanese forces at the last surrendered before the Allied forces led by Britain. Lord Mountbatten, who was then the commander-in-chief of the southeastern region, he wanted to commemorate that day as the second anniversary. For that he chose 15th of August 1947. But our astrologers defied the saying that that date is not auspicious, but it was highly illuminous. They wanted to have it at least on the previous day. But their demand was on the 26th of January 1948. Why January 26th is for the reason, almost 17 years before independence, that was in the year 1930, the Indian National Congress, in its national conference at Lahore, for the first time announced Purna Swaraj, absolute independence. Since then, in the whole parts of India, particularly the Congress people and the votaries of Congress, they used to hoist the flag and celebrate that day as the date of independence. Therefore, we are all planning that 26th of January should be the date of our independence, but Mountbatten had a different idea. We had to succumb to that. There was a long debate between 15th of August or 14th of August because 15th was inauspicious. At last, compromise was struck between the leaders of Congress and Mountbatten. It was decided to have neither on the 14th nor on the 15th, but it shall be at the 00 hours in the midnight. That is how India was born as a midnight baby. When the documents were handed over to Jawaharlal Nehru at the stroke of the clock striking 12 in the midnight, the Constituent Assembly members assembled in the Central Hall of the Parliament, and after receiving the documents, Nehru stood up and spoke the famous speech, Tryst with Destiny. At the stroke of this midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India is awakening to life and to freedom. An hour and moment comes, which comes but rarely in history, where a nation will have to step out from the old and get into the new. The soul of a nation which was struggling for freedom for a long time found utterance on that day. Did the crisis get over on that Independence Day? No. Even our father of nation was not able to attend that function. There was a huge carnage throughout the country even on the date of freedom. When we were celebrating and receiving the documents of freedom, the father of the nation was spending his time in Calcutta and in the areas of Bengal, trying to make peace between the warring, raging communities, the Hindus and Muslims. One of the historians, that legal historian, Granville Austin, in his famous book, the Indian Constitution, a cornerstone of the nation, he goes on record saying the Constituent Assembly had to sit and deliberate and deal with the framing of the fundamental rights in such a calm and harmonious atmosphere inside the Constituent Assembly, amidst a carnage of wrongs outside. In his own words, he says, it is an irony in history that the fundamental rights were to be framed inside amidst the carnage of fundamental wrongs outside. This is the situation. This again is a challenge amidst which the Constitution of India was born. At the time when the Constitution was framed, though we had the support of the previous 1935 Government of India Act, but India wanted to introduce several other aspects, namely the fundamental rights and the democratic form of government, so on and so forth. The most important of all is, though Constituent Assembly was constituted to frame the Constitution sometime in 1946, a year before independence. It started its first sitting on the 9th of December 1946. It again owed its legal existence, legal recognition to the British parliamentary enactment called the Indian Independence Act 1947. Though this was the byproduct of the Cabinet Mission Plan, but still it got its legal sanctity only under this British law. Almost 270 and odd people over a period of 3 years, to be precise, 2 years, 11 months and 17 days. They deliberated on this framing of the Constitution. At last, they came out with the Constitution. But again, people of India wanted the declaration of independence as well as the formation of the Constitution as a product of their own, not the grant of somebody or even from the Britishers. That is why they made a very brilliant preamble to the Constitution, most of you would remember, very beautifully starting saying, we the people of India hereby solemnly constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. And in our Constituent Assembly on this 26th day of November 1946, we hereby do adopt, enact and give to ourselves, that is very important, and give to ourselves this Constitution. Thereby the Constitution came to be adopted on the 26th of November 1949 and put into full operation on the date what we wanted to have as the date of independence, namely 26th of January. It happened in 1950. Thereafter, the Constitution was put into full operation. Did the challenges stop there? No. One after another, challenges continue to be a perennial affair. So far as these religious rights and the minorities' rights, they got enshrined in the Constitution. All of you know that Articles 25, 26 and Article 29 and 30 are exclusively for the protection of the religious rights as well as the minority rights. Though these rights came to be enshrined in the inviolable part of fundamental rights, that is part 3 of the Constitution, but time and again all possible attempts were made by the political system as well as the bureaucratic people all these years to transgress or trammel the rights that were guaranteed to the minorities and the religious people. Therefore, this topic challenges and changing legal landscape, the context and the call. This change has been a constant affair. Therefore, let us not be terrified by these stray incidents that are happening here and there at times. When Father shared with us about the difficulties what he had undergone in the jail, maybe it is an occasion which is very tragic for him, but he himself told us very clearly that he had the opportunity of witnessing what has been going on in a prison, where people have been languishing for decades together, some of them, most of them for waiting for trials and some of them after conviction, without anybody going and meeting them, except the few religious people who occasionally make a visit, carrying bread and butter. That's what he said. Therefore, these are challenges which are very constant in any democracy, more particularly in our democracy with this diverse culture and creed and everything. Today, the status is a little more worrying. Why? Because the present political dispensation carries the three motto. One is Hindi, the other is Hindutva, and the third one is Hindustan. And for this they go on making empty slogans like one nation, one election, one nation, one law. And all these empty slogans are being raised at times only to get the majoritarian votes, not for anything else. Today, though these slogans are loudly and vociferously made, but still we are able to live as a single nation without any possibility of seceding or breaking down because of the constitution and the courts. Right from 1951, as I said, the constitution was put into operation in 1950, but right from 1951, we had umpteen number of problems, the religious minorities and the linguistic minorities. This is not something new. Even in the year 1951, that what I'm trying to say is that the politicians and bureaucrats did not have the patience to wait even for a single year to demolish the rights of the minorities. But every time when these attempts were made, somehow the courts are coming to our rescue. And we have been living because the courts are trying to uphold the fundamental rights that are provided under the Constitution. That is how we are able to survive now. India can never be broken or divided as long as the Constitution is here. In one of the famous judgments delivered by the Supreme Court, way back in the year 1958, a very famous Chief Justice S.R. Das, he very poetically says about the Indian diversification, but still it's a resolve to live together in unity. He beautifully says India has been a welcoming nation all through the years, and it has learned how to live as a single nation, as a single family with all these diversities. In his beautiful words, he says that throughout the ages of humanity, endless inundations of men of diverse creeds, cultures and races came down to this ancient land. They got mingled, merged and dissolved into one being, that is called India. We had great patriotic poets like Rabindranath Tagore who said, "None shall be turned away from the shores of this vast sea of humanity, that is India." Fortunately, we had 5 great leaders who led the freedom struggle, what we famously call Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Prasad and Azad. Mohan Chand Karamchand Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. And people like them, these 5 sets of 5 people led the nation so well that now some of the legal historians say these 5 leaders were incapable of doing any harm to the people of India. Just imagine the contradistinction from those politicians who led the nation during the struggle for freedom and the present leaders who are running the political show here. They say, the historians say, these people that got such kind of confidence from the people of India because they were incapable of doing any harm to the people. Among the 5, 4 happened to be lawyers, except Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. The remaining 4 were lawyers. So also, when the Constitution was in the making, though it was a large body of 270 and odd people, but in fact only 20 people led the whole show. They were instrumental in the framing of the Constitution. And among these 20 plus 1, that is B.N. Rao, who was not a member of the Constituent Assembly, but a constitutional advisor, who was an erstwhile judge of the High Court. Among these 21, 13 again happened to be lawyers. Therefore, in fact, it is the lawyers who led the freedom movement, and it is the lawyers who predominantly drafted the Constitution for India. That is how a beautiful document like this, though it is very long, it is the lengthiest constitution in the world, all of you know, with the 395 articles and 8 schedules in those days at the time. Now we have a few more schedules. This was the lengthiest constitution. And again, at the time when the constitution was adopted, on the 26th of November, 1946, the previous day, it was placed before the Constituent Assembly in its full form. Dr. Ambedkar presented it. Someone asked him, "Sir, you have presented the lengthiest in the world, but can you point out one particular article which is the most important of all?" Without any pausing, he said, Article 32 is the heart and soul of the Constitution of India. Article 32 is the article, all of you know, which guarantees the fundamental right to the citizens of India to move the Supreme Court for the enforcement of their fundamental rights. Thereby, though this democratic setup, this republican form of government, will all this a federal structure, these were all there in the Constitution. But according to Ambedkar, who was the chairperson of the drafting committee, the most important part, the article is Article 32. Article 32 not only guarantees the fundamental rights for the citizen, but gives us a fundamental right to move the Supreme Court through the lawyers, obviously. Thereby, I always believe that not only the freedom struggle was led by the lawyers, but the Constitution itself was predominantly drafted by them. And again, at this statement of Dr. Ambedkar, the custody of the Constitution itself is handed down in the hands of the lawyers in Article 32. So, the Constitution has to be preserved. That is very important. Who is to preserve the Constitution? Who is to have it in safe custody? It is again by the lawyers and the judges of this court. Therefore, it is good that people belonging to these religious communities, you have all ventured to take this law as a profession, side by side with your missionary service. As long as the Constitution will be preserved like this, India as a nation will certainly survive as a single nation with all these rights which are available to us, will stand guaranteed to us. This is what I try to give as the keynote address, and Father Santanam gave me a very long time, and I would be happy if you are able, if you wish to make a few questions, 1 or 2 questions, so that we will have some interaction for 5 minutes. Session.
Okay. We shall have it, okay, in the next session, the clarification and questions. Okay, it's getting time. It's time, okay. Therefore, we shall have a break.
Yes.
Next session.
Thank you so much, all participants. I'm so happy to be amidst all of you in this wonderful session. And I thank Father Santanam for providing me with this opportunity. Anyhow, let us meet again in the first session where we will discuss something about the crux of the rights of the minorities under Article 30. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a breath-holding moment for us to listen to, sir, and inspiring us and stressing on Constitution and confirming us that Constitution is the pillar of our country. And also challenging us that as lawyers, it is not so easy for us and the road is not so smooth to walk on. And so now we are once again happy and excited to have the presence of Mr. Isaac Mohanlal, Senior Counsellor, Madras High Court. I call upon Father E.A. Thomas, one of the senior members and the convener of Odisha National Lawyers Forum, to honor him with a shawl and a memento.
correspondent of St. Joseph Dental College and Hospital, consider it a great privilege to propose the vote of thanks. At the conclusion of the inaugural session of the prestigious National Convention of the National Lawyers Forum of Priests and Religious. First and foremost, I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. J. Rao Polimera, Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Eluru, for selecting St. Joseph Dental College, Eluru as the venue for the distinguished National Convention. Our campus also houses St. Joseph College of Nursing. On behalf of the both institutions, I extend my sincere thanks to the National Forum for entrusting the Diocese of Eluru and our colleges with this important event. I have the honor of thanking all the distinguished dignitaries on the stage and everyone involved in organizing the inaugural session. First, I express my deepest appreciation to His Excellency, Most Reverend Dr. J. Rao Polimera, for granting us as the chief guest, for gracing us as the chief guest and delivering such a thought-provoking message to the legal community. I also wish to extend my gratitude to Honorable D. Ramulu Garu, District and Sessions Judge, who will be presenting a lecture later today. He arrived yesterday and devoted the entire day to preparing for his talk. We eagerly anticipate his valuable insights. Thank you, sir. Yeah, please give a... I would like to express my sincere thanks to Reverend Father Santanam S.J., the president of the function, for his invaluable message. I am certain that none of us will forget the keynote address, as Mr. Isaac Mohanlal was the perfect choice to address the changing legal landscape. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I thank Sri Kone Sitaram, Public Prosecutor at the District Court in Eluru, and the President of the Eluru Bar Association for their insightful contribution. A special thanks to you, sir, G. Ronald Raju, Senior Advocate at the High Court and Supreme Court, for his thoughtful message. I cannot conclude my vote of thanks without expressing my deep appreciation to Reverend Sister Jansi, the Mother General of the Sisters of Good News, whose presence added a unique and special touch to our gathering. I also wish to acknowledge Sister Helen, the Treasurer of the Forum, for her exceptional role in organizing this event. A sincere thank you is due to those working behind the scenes, the principal, faculty, students, and the supporting staff of St. Joseph Dental College and St. Joseph College of Nursing, whose tireless efforts ensure the success of this session. Finally, I extend my thanks to everyone who contributed to making this inaugural session not only a success, but a joyful, enriching experience. Your cooperation has been invaluable. Once again, I thank all the participants for their active cooperation and support. Thank you, and we all continue to be inspired by the discussions insights shared today. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Father. Please do stand up for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय है भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल वंगा विंध्य हिमाचल शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गादा, जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे, जय 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 हे।
1989లో విజయ స్కిన్ హాస్పిటల్, 2011లో విజయ లేజర్ సెంటర్, 2016లో విజయ హెయిర్ కేర్ సెంటర్ ప్రారంభించిన ప్రముఖ చర్మ వ్యాధుల నిపుణులు గోల్డ్ మెడలిస్ట్ డాక్టర్ సుబ్బారావు గారి నేతృత్వంలో గత 35 సంవత్సరాలుగా నిరంతరం వైద్య సేవలు అందిస్తున్న ఏకైక అత్యంత ఆధునిక సంస్థ మీ విజయ హెయిర్ స్కిన్ అండ్ లేజర్ సెంటర్. ఏలూరులో మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా అన్ని రకాల పరికరములతో పెట్టిన ఏకైక సంస్థ విజయ హెయిర్ స్కిన్ అండ్ లేజర్ సెంటర్. అనుభవజ్ఞులైన డాక్టర్స్ చే అత్యంత మెరుగైన వైద్య సేవలు అందిస్తున్న సంస్థ. అన్ని రకాల ట్రీట్మెంట్లు, హెయిర్, స్కిన్, నెయిల్స్, హెయిర్ ట్రాన్స్ప్లాంటేషన్, స్కిన్ టైట్నింగ్, టాటూ రిమూవింగ్ వంటి అన్నిటికీ కూడా ఏకైక సంస్థ విజయ హెయిర్ అండ్ లేజర్ సెంటర్. మా అడ్రస్ శంకరమఠం వీధి, ఆర్ఆర్పేట, ఏలూరు 2.